Have you ever wondered why we stand in lines, say please and thank you, or feel a sense of unease when we break a social rule, even a small one? It feels so natural, so ingrained, that we rarely question it. But where did this invisible blueprint for our behavior come from? To find the answer, we have to travel back in time, way back, before written laws, before governments, even before the first cities rose from the earth. Imagine a world of pure uncertainty, a world where every day was a struggle for survival against the elements, predators, and even other humans. In this chaotic environment, individual strength was important, but it wasn't enough. The key to survival, the true game changer, was cooperation. Early humans who learned to work together to hunt, gather, and defend themselves had a much better chance of seeing the next sunrise. Out of this necessity, patterns began to emerge. These weren't grand strategies debated around a campfire. They were simple, practical solutions to recurring problems. If a certain way of sharing food meant everyone ate, people did it again. If a specific signal warned of danger and saved lives, it was repeated. These repeated actions weren't taught like lessons in a school. They were absorbed, learned through observation and imitation, from one generation to the next. What started as simple survival tactics slowly began to harden into something more. These successful behaviors created expectations. If you were part of a group, you were expected to contribute to the hunt. You were expected to share your findings. You were expected to help watch for danger. These weren't laws punishable by a judge, but the consequences for breaking them were very real. Being ostracized from the group could be a death sentence. These expectations became norms, the unwritten rules of social life. Norms guided everything: how to greet a stranger, how to mourn the dead, how to raise children. They created a shared understanding, a sense of predictability, in a world that was otherwise wild and unpredictable. Humans weren't just building physical structures like shelters and tools. They were building invisible structures within their own minds. Structures of belonging and order. This early form of social order wasn't imposed by a powerful leader with an army. It grew organically from the ground up, nurtured by four powerful forces: habit, fear, belonging, and repetition. The habit of doing things a certain way made it feel natural. The fear of social exclusion or failure kept people in line. The deep-seated need for belonging made people eager to conform. And the constant repetition, day after day, generation after generation, cemented these behaviors into the very fabric of human culture. These ancient, invisible structures are the deep foundations of our modern societies. They are the ancestors of our laws, our ethics, and our complex social institutions. Long before anyone wrote down a single rule, order had already found its way into the human mind. It entered not through force, but through the quiet, persistent rhythm of daily life, shaping how we think, how we act, and who we are. So, the next time you find yourself instinctively following a social cue, take a moment to think about its ancient origins. You're participating in a tradition that is tens of thousands of years old, a tradition born from the fundamental human quest to create order out of chaos. To truly understand our world today, we have to appreciate how that journey began. The first topic is when survival needed structure. Ever wondered where rules came from? Why do we have governments, laws, and even unspoken social codes? It all goes back to a time when survival was the only thing that mattered. In the earliest days of humanity, life was incredibly fragile. Small, scattered groups of people faced a world filled with constant threats. Imagine it. Every day was a battle against hunger, dangerous predators, unpredictable weather, and even other human groups. In that kind of environment, going it alone was practically a death sentence. Survival hinged on teamwork. It wasn't about grand strategies. It was about simple, coordinated actions. Who keeps watch? Who finds food? Who protects the young? Acting together, trusting each other, and timing things just right, that was the difference between living to see another sunrise and not. Chaos was the enemy. Every mistake, every moment of disorganization could be fatal. Slowly, but surely, our ancestors started to learn this lesson, not through words, but through experience. At the very beginning, there were no rules, just reactions. But patterns began to form. The person who spotted a predator and shouted a warning was remembered. Their action saved the group. The one who found a patch of edible berries and shared them during a famine was valued. Their generosity kept others alive. These weren't laws written on stone tablets. They were successful behaviors that got repeated. What worked once was tried again and again. Over time, these repeated actions turned into expected behaviors. The things that helped the group survive became traditions long before anyone had a word for tradition. This early structure wasn't about one person controlling another. It was about efficiency. Think of it like a well-oiled machine. A group needed a way to decide who was best at hunting, who had the sharpest eyes for lookout duty, and who should carry the children when moving to a new camp. These roles weren't assigned in a formal meeting. They emerged naturally. The person who consistently brought back the most game became the hunter. The one whose actions led to the group's survival was the one people looked to for guidance. Success was the only qualification. Slowly, something fascinating happened in the human mind. We began to prefer predictability. Knowing what your neighbor was going to do brought a sense of calm. It reduced the constant, gnawing fear of the unknown. Predictability created comfort, and in a world full of dangers, comfort was a powerful tool for survival. When you were spending all your mental energy worrying about what the person next to you might do, you could focus on finding food or watching for threats. This shared understanding, this invisible agreement, became the glue that held societies together, even when no one consciously acknowledged it. This is the true origin of social order. It wasn't imposed from the top down by a powerful leader. It was absorbed from the bottom up, through generations of trial and error. Survival itself was a teacher, and the lesson was clear. Shared patterns are safer than individual randomness. A predictable group was a strong group. Over countless generations, these patterns of behavior hardened. They became what once was a practical choice for survival evolved into something people did simply because it's what you were supposed to do. People followed these structures without even remembering the original life or death reasons behind them. Why do we share food with our community? It's not just because we're nice. It's because our ancestors learned that sharing prevented the group from starving. Why do we defer to experienced leaders in a crisis? Because groups that followed the wise and experienced were the ones that survived. The why got lost in time, but the what remained. Structure was no longer just about staying alive. It became about belonging. Following the group's unwritten rules was how you showed you were part of the tribe. It was how you earned trust and protection. To be an outsider, to reject the structure, was to put yourself back into that dangerous state of chaos our ancestors had worked so hard to escape. This deep-seated need for order and belonging is baked into our DNA. It's a direct inheritance from those early humans who learned that, together, with structure, they could face the world. Alone, they would perish. So next time you find yourself waiting in line, or stopping at a red light, or participating in a family tradition, take a moment. You're not just following a rule, you're participating in a story that is hundreds of thousands of years old. You are reenacting the fundamental discovery of our species, that in a chaotic world, structure is survival. It's the invisible framework that allows us to build everything we have today, from the smallest communities to the largest cities. It's a legacy written not in ink, but in the simple, powerful instinct to stick together. The second topic is from habit to expectation. Have you ever wondered why we do the things we do? Why we follow certain paths without even thinking about it? It all starts with a simple choice. But when that choice is repeated, something strange happens. It stops feeling like a choice. It becomes a habit. Think about your morning routine, the way you brush your teeth, the route you take to work. You don't consciously decide these things every day. They just happen. Now, imagine this on a much grander scale. Imagine an entire group of people sharing the same habits. Suddenly, those habits aren't just personal routines anymore. They transform into expectations. Early humans lived in small, tight-knit groups, where survival was everything. In that world, predictability was safety. If someone acted in a way everyone understood, they were trusted. But if someone did something unexpected, it was unsettling. It wasn't about right or wrong. It was about being a wild card. Unpredictability felt dangerous. So, a silent rule was born. Stick to the script. Do what's expected. These expectations weren't carved into stone tablets or written in laws. They were absorbed. Children learned them by watching their elders. Newcomers learned them by copying the group. It was a social osmosis, a way of fitting in and staying safe. After a while, questioning these behaviors seemed pointless. Then, it became uncomfortable. Our brains are wired to love the familiar. Familiarity is easy. It's low. Even if that familiarity starts to build a cage around our freedom, we often prefer the comfort of the known. As these expectations solidified, they began to do more than just guide behavior. They started to shape our very identities. People didn't just do asterisk things. The asterisks became asterisks those things. You weren't just the person who hunted. You were the hunter. You weren't just the person who cared for the young. You were the caretaker. You were the watcher, the leader, the follower. These labels were useful. They created order and reduced confusion. Everyone knew their place, but they also reduced our flexibility. We started to define ourselves not by who we were, but by what the group expected us to be. This is where the system became no one needed to be a policeman. Expectation did all the work. If you followed the rules, you received a powerful reward. Social approval, a smile, a nod, a sense of belonging. But if you deviated, you faced an equally powerful punishment. Discomfort, the awkward silence, the confused stares, the feeling of being an outsider. This system of reward and punishment, powered by our own psychology, kept everyone in line. By the time we became aware of these deep-seated patterns, they were already part of us. They were internalized. What began as a simple, practical habit to survive had morphed into a sense of obligation. What was once a flexible strategy had become a permanent role. And here's the most fascinating part. We stopped asking if these expectations were still useful. We stopped questioning whether they served our happiness and growth, or if we were just serving the system itself. Think about the expectations you live with today. The pressure to get a certain job, to marry by a certain age, to act a certain way. Where did these ideas come from? Are they truly your own desires? Or are they echoes of ancient habits, designed for a world that no longer exists? These unspoken rules create a sense of order, but they can also limit our potential. They give us a map. But what if we want to explore off the path? The moment we begin to question these inherited expectations is the moment we reclaim our freedom of choice. It is about looking at the shoulds and musts in our lives and asking a simple, powerful question. Why? Is this rule helping me, or am I just helping the rule survive? It's not about rebellion for the sake of it. It's about conscious living. It's about choosing your path, not just walking the one that was paved for you centuries ago. Because at the end of the day, the greatest human ability isn't to form habits, but to question them. To look at the system we've built and decide which parts are worth keeping and which parts we've outgrown. That process of questioning is where true progress begins. It's how we evolve, not just as a society, but as individuals. So, what's one expectation you've always followed without really knowing why? Maybe it's time to take a closer look. The third topic is belonging as a human need. Did you know that one of our deepest human needs isn't about food or shelter? It's something far more subtle, yet just as powerful, the need to belong. Imagine our early ancestors. As their groups grew larger and more complex, survival was no longer just about finding the next meal or a safe place to sleep. It became about acceptance. To be alone was to be vulnerable, an easy target for predators or rival groups, but to belong, that was to be safe, protected, and part of a team. Over countless generations, this simple truth carved a deep groove into our collective psyche. Belonging transformed from a strategic advantage into one of the most powerful drivers of human behavior. Our minds began to learn a critical lesson. Those who fit in were shielded by the group, while those who stood apart faced a terrifying uncertainty. What's fascinating is that this didn't require open threats or harsh punishments. The mere fear of exclusion was enough. Think about it. Being ignored, intentionally avoided, or left behind by your tribe, these weren't just social slights. On a deep, primal level, they felt like a death sentence. Our brains started to equate belonging with survival itself. This fundamental connection is still wired into us today, influencing our decisions in ways we often don't even realize. Because of this deep-seated fear of isolation, something remarkable started to happen. People began to adjust their behaviors, their beliefs, and even their appearances to match the group. This wasn't always a conscious choice or a sign of genuine agreement. Often, it was a subconscious strategy. Agreement ensured connection. Connection ensured survival. So, individual differences were often softened, sharp edges were smoothed over, uncomfortable questions were left unasked. Over time, this created a powerful feedback loop. Similarity became comfortable, and that feeling of comfort, of being in sync with everyone else, became the new normal. But belonging wasn't just about conforming in the present moment. It was also about shaping our memory and our identity. Shared stories, rituals passed down through generations, and repeated group behaviors all served a vital purpose. They constantly reminded individuals that they were part of something much larger than themselves. Think of ancient campfires, where tales of heroes and spirits were told night after night. These weren't just entertainment. They were threads weaving the fabric of a collective identity, strengthening the emotional bonds between people until the idea of separation became almost unthinkable. The group wasn't just a collection of individuals anymore. The group became who you were. Once belonging became so tightly interwoven with behavior and identity, social order no longer needed constant explanation or enforcement. People started to follow established patterns and social norms, not because they were forced to, but because doing so kept them connected. The quiet, nagging fear of being cast out, of being on the outside looking in, became a powerful internal motivator. It trained the human mind to obey before it even had a chance to question. This is a crucial shift. The need to belong was no longer just a social preference, it became a deep psychological imperative. This is why social rejection can feel so painful, even in our modern world where our physical survival doesn't depend on a small tribe. When we feel excluded, our brains react in a way that mirrors physical pain. That sting of being left out of a conversation or unfriended online taps into that ancient, primal fear of being abandoned by the group. It's a powerful reminder that our social health is just as important to our well-being as our physical health. We are fundamentally wired to connect, and when that connection is threatened, our entire system goes on high alert. This powerful drive also explains why we're so susceptible to peer pressure and groupthink. We naturally look to others for cues on how to act, what to believe, and what to be. It's an efficient shortcut that, for most of human history, kept us safe. Following the crowd meant staying within the protective circle of the group. The problem is, this instinct doesn't always serve us well in the complex, diverse world we live in today. It can lead us to suppress our own unique thoughts and silence our inner voice in favor of group harmony. So, where does that leave us? Understanding this deep-seated need is the first step toward navigating it more consciously. It allows us to recognize when our desire to belong might be leading us astray, and it gives us the compassion to understand why others might conform so readily. It also highlights the profound importance of finding a tribe where we can be our authentic self, group where belonging doesn't require us to sacrifice our individuality. Because true belonging isn't about erasing our differences, it's about being valued for them. In the end, this journey through our evolutionary past reveals a fundamental truth about our species. We didn't just happen to live in groups. Our minds, our emotions, and our very sense of self were forged in the crucible of community. We evolved not just to survive with others, but to live for them. That deep, instinctual pull toward connection is what makes us human. The fourth topic is fear, reward, and repetition. Have you ever wondered how societies stay so incredibly organized? It's not just about laws and police. The real secret is much deeper, much more personal. It's a powerful trio of forces working inside our very own minds. Fear, reward, and repetition. When these three started working together, order became something we didn't just follow, it became a part of who we are. Let's start with fear. Now, I'm not talking about the kind of fear you feel watching a horror movie. This is a quieter, more subtle fear. It's the fear of being wrong, the anxiety of being different, the deep-seated dread of being left all alone. Think about it. When you're in a new social situation, don't you feel a little pressure to fit in? That slight hesitation before you voice an unpopular opinion. That's it. That's the fear I'm talking about. This subtle fear is an incredibly effective guide for our behavior, far more powerful than any threat of force or punishment could ever be. It's not a prison with walls. It's a psychological boundary we build for ourselves. We learn very quickly which actions might lead to disapproval or isolation, and we instinctively steer away from them. It's a survival mechanism, really. Our ancestors needed the group to survive, so being cast out was a death sentence. That ancient fear still echoes within us today, quietly shaping our choices, keeping us aligned with the group, and maintaining social harmony without anyone ever having to say a word. So, fear keeps us from straying too far from the path. But what keeps us walking on it? That's where the second element comes in. Reward. Just as fear warns us away from certain behaviors, reward actively encourages others. And again, these aren't necessarily big, flashy rewards. We're not talking about winning the lottery. We're talking about the small, everyday social currencies that we all value so much. A nod of approval from someone you respect, a warm smile from a stranger when you hold the door open, the feeling of being included in a conversation, of being trusted with a secret, of gaining status within your group. These are the rewards that reinforce conformity. Each time we act in a way that society deems correct, we get a little hit of dopamine. Our brain gets a positive signal. It's a form of social conditioning. These small but constant rewards train our minds to repeat the behaviors that earn them. We learn that following expectations brings a sense of safety, belonging, and validation. The mind is a brilliant learning machine, and it quickly figures out the formula. This behavior equals comfort and approval, while that behavior equals discomfort and rejection. It is a simple but profoundly effective system for ensuring that we not only know the rules, but actively want to follow them. Now we have fear pushing us from one side and reward pulling us from the other. But what makes these behaviors stick? What turns a conscious choice into an unconscious habit? The final, crucial piece of the puzzle is repetition. The more often we perform a certain action, the less it feels like a choice. Think about your morning routine. You probably do. You unconsciously decide to brush your teeth or put on your shoes in a specific order. You just do it. It's automatic. Your brain loves this. It's constantly looking for ways to save energy, and creating automatic habits is its favorite shortcut. It's like carving a path in a dense forest. The first time is difficult, but each time you walk it, the path becomes clearer and easier to follow. Eventually, it becomes the default route. The same thing happens with our social behaviors. Every time we conform to an expectation and receive that small reward, the neural pathway for that behavior gets stronger. Over time, these well-trodden paths become our automatic responses. The behaviors that were once guided by fear and reward are now locked in place by the sheer force of habit. They become second nature. And here's what makes this whole system so ingenious and so powerful. It's invisibility. There is no single authority figure standing over us, watching our every move. There's no grand council that decided these rules. The system doesn't need external enforcement because we enforce it on ourselves. We have internalized the rules so completely that we become our own guards. We correct our own behavior before anyone else even has a chance to notice we've stepped out of line. We feel a pang of guilt or embarrassment, and the system lives inside our minds. It's an internal monologue, a constant reward encourages us to maintain the status quo, and repetition makes it all feel permanent and natural. This is the moment when order stops being an external set of rules imposed upon us, and it becomes an internal compass that guides our every action. We no longer need to be told how to act in most situations because we just know. But the most fascinating part of this entire process is that we come to believe it was all our own idea. We feel that our behaviors, our beliefs, and our values are the result of our own, free, independent choices. We see ourselves as individuals making rational decisions, when in reality, we are often following a script written by generations of social conditioning. This isn't to say we have no free will, of course we do, but it's crucial to recognize the powerful, invisible forces that shape our lives. Understanding this trio of fear, reward, and repetition is like being given a key. It unlocks a deeper understanding of human behavior, of society, and most importantly, of ourselves. It allows us to see the matrix, to question the automatic patterns, and to make more conscious choices about who we want to be and how we want to live. So the next time you find yourself automatically saying, "bless you," after a sneeze, or feeling a slight discomfort when everyone else is laughing at a joke you don't get, take a moment. Recognize the quiet hum of the system at work, the subtle fear of being the odd one out, the implicit reward of shared social ritual, the powerful inertia of repetition. It's in these small moments that you can see the grand architecture of social order, built not with bricks and mortar, but within the silent, intricate workings of the human mind. The fifth topic is how order became invisible. Have you ever wondered why we do the things we do? Why we shake hands, or stand in line, or say "bless you" when someone sneezes? We do these things automatically, without a second thought. It just feels normal. But what if I told you that this sense of normal is one of the most powerful, invisible forces shaping your entire life? Think about it. Long ago, every rule, every custom was a new idea. Someone, somewhere, decided this was a better way to do things. Maybe it was for survival, for cooperation, or just for convenience. At first, these were conscious choices, learned behaviors. You had to remember to do it. But over generations, something incredible happened. These learned behaviors stopped feeling learned. They started to feel innate, as natural as breathing. We forgot the why behind our actions. We only can out the how. This is how things are done. This is how we behave. This is what's right. And once something feels natural, we rarely stop to question it. Why would we? It's like questioning why the sky is blue. It just is. This is the genius of a truly effective system of order. The most powerful systems aren't the ones with loud alarms, strict rules, and constant reminders. No, the most powerful systems are the ones that disappear. They weave themselves into the very fabric of our daily lives, becoming invisible. This order didn't just stay in rulebooks or ancient texts. It seeped into our habits, our language, our morning routines. It became the silent architect of our choices. It guides you when you decide what to wear to a job interview, how you talk to a stranger, or even what you consider a good life. It works quietly, without ever shouting a command. We follow its path, not because we feel forced, but because it feels like our own. And this is the most fascinating part. Because this order lives inside us, we mistake it for our own free will. We believe our decisions are entirely our own, unique expressions of our personality. But if you zoom out, you'll see that our free choices often follow the same narrow, well-trodden paths as everyone else around us. We all want similar things, fear similar failures, and dream similar dreams. This system is so effective, it doesn't need walls or guards to enforce it. It doesn't need a police force to patrol our minds. The system lives within us. It's in our thoughts, our automatic reactions, our deepest anxieties about being different or being judged. The fear of being ostracized is a far more powerful prison than any physical one. By the time we humans develop the capacity for deep self-reflection, for asking these big questions about who we are, the system was already fully installed. The order had already defined our sense of normal. So, trying to step outside of it to truly break the mold feels more than just different. It feels wrong. It feels unnatural, and sometimes even dangerous. There's a visceral resistance to it, and that is when the order reached its final, perfect form, unseen, unquestioned, and completely we have become its willing guardians, enforcing its rules on ourselves and on each other. Often, without even realizing, we're doing it. The foundations of this order were laid thousands of years ago. We can't see them anymore. They are buried deep beneath centuries of history, culture, and habit. But make no mistake, they are still there. Those ancient structures are still at work, shaping every moment of your life. Right now, as you watch this video, they are the invisible blueprints of our world. So the next time you do something without thinking, maybe take a second. Ask yourself, where did this come from? Is this action truly my own? Or am I walking a path that was laid out for me long before I was born? The answers might surprise you. Thanks for watching. If this made you think, consider subscribing for more explorations into the hidden forces that shape our lives.